So we thought we should do something special this weekend for all those that are joining us. Tell us what we're doing today, Caleb. Something special.
Well, we're going to go a little low-key, a little more lighthearted right this time around. And what we want to do is we want to interact with some of our kind of biggest criticisms of the show so far. We've done 4 or 5 shows so far.
No, I think like 7 at this point.
Okay, 7 shows so far.
Yeah, 7, 8.
Oh, yeah, when this airs, yeah. So 7 shows, and we've got some criticisms, and so we want to encourage interaction with people. That's what this podcast is all about. It's all about giving everybody their own voice and hearing everybody out. And so we want to tackle these criticisms and see if we can bring some clarity, maybe, and just add to it.
Yeah, and I think, it's like we can always go in our podcast and we can always just bring up Bible and Scripture. And what we've always wanted to do is to show people, like, you can have reasonable discussion and debate, and you can allow the Scriptures and your relationship with God to really kind of express through those things. And so you and I could easily, we're seminary trained guys, so we could easily on every episode have a Bible out and look at this verse and do that. We do that. That's what we do. That's what we are trained to do. But we really wanted a podcast that would inspire the everyday person to be like, man, look at those guys. Look how they talk, and they're Christians, and how they discuss, and look how they disagree. And me and Caleb easily could be like, wait, chapter and verse it, everything you say, and we could do that. We've done that historically. That's what we've been. So the team may even show us some praises that we'll comment on, but really we wanted to do something special over this kind of hour episode, is just engaging with our viewers, engaging with our comments. By this time, I believe we've already had like 50,000 downloads of our stuff.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Which is massive.
Yeah.
So you've had 50,000 people pop up on our YouTube, pop up on our TikTok. We're on everything. So we're on to YouTube Shorts. We're on Instagram. We're just on everything. And so some of the guys, Jermaine, who runs our audio, Gabe, who's our director, they've worked on cultivating. We and again, like, sometimes I stay away from the comments unless someone DMs me, because I don't want it always to get too much in my head. But an avenue like this, we can do it because now we can talk about it and respond to it. But sometimes if I'm reading the comment by myself, I'll just go crawl in a corner and be like, they hate me, But like the guys have told us, there's way more encouragement and praise. Obviously, we have a lot of subscribers now, so people are enjoying it. But we thought we'd give a little bit of a voice.
Oh yeah, for sure, and to encourage you who listen to this, like feel free. I mean, you
never know. We may talk about your comment.
Yeah, feel free. If you disagree with us, post it. We got thick skin. So
sometimes. Hey, so Gabe, Jermaine, lead us into some stuff. Tell us how you're gonna break into this, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, so we're gonna do it in each section. We have comments from our Instagram, from our YouTube, from our TikTok. So this is the minor attracted people. This is Sanaz talking about that whole dynamic, and
the episode we did with Sanaz, and the maps.
And this is the clip. And so an unnamed person said, who exactly is promoting acceptance of minor attracted people and pedophiles? Conflating the call for civil rights of the LGBTQIA community with acceptance of pedophilia is dishonest at best and dangerous at worst. Please educate yourselves. This kind of rhetoric incites violence against an already vulnerable population. This is not Christ's love in action. So it...
I think that was responding to a clip, because the larger context kind of made it more clear what we were talking about in regards to this particular thing. In the context of this, with exposing and talking about the way our culture is desensitizing us to this gross act of pedophilia, and calling it minor attractive people and everything. And the overall conversation was that you see this connection between, like, drag queen story hour and transgenderism and where kids are present and where gross acts are happening and the kids are being sexualized. And so they're in society, it's connecting that with like a drag queen, a transsexual. And the point that we were making also was, you know, those in the LGBTQ community, you should join forces together. Like, this is something we all should unite around. We weren't condemning a gay person or a lesbian. We were saying that we need to come together and speak against this.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I even talked about how, you know, there's Gays Against Grooming
On Facebook,
which
yeah.
were censored just because they're gay people who were saying, listen, like, this has nothing to do with us.
Yeah.
This is not a part of our what we want, our call. And so we made that very clear in the video. It wasn't a gay bashing video. It was bashing this particular sick thing that's happening in our culture right now, the over-sexualization of children.
Yeah, and like, you know, and I'll, you know, we'll just be very honest. Like, you know, you and I don't decide what clips to pull. Our executive producers, they decide, but I agree. You know, some of the clips we post is to create a curiosity for people to jump on to see the full conversation, because we want people to experience the brevity. Sometimes if you're watching something on social media and it feels like the clip had a beginning and an end, you'll feel like the conversation was done.
Mm-hmm.
And so you won't jump onto that YouTube channel or you won't jump onto that podcast to say, I wonder what the context was that they were saying that. And so for our audience, that's partly what we're doing, is we're piecing out a part that seems to, you know, leave on a cliffhanger so that people go, man, I got to go listen to this episode. So there's a natural element where we are leaving a little bit of room and a little bit of suspense for someone to encourage someone to go and listen to the rest of the podcast. Right. But also, like what you said is like, because in that clip, you mentioned like the LGBTQIA plus, the plus is pedophilia. And the point you're making is those that are part of the minor attracted people party, they're trying to define that within the plus.
Right.
They're trying to say, hey, that's us.
Right.
When others who are in the community are saying, no, that's someone who's non-binary. That's someone who's cis-binary. That's someone who's this or that. But here's one of the if I'm being truthful, here is one of the issues in the LGBTQ community is there is no form of governance in that community.
Right.
So you also can't be mad at us because they do not have a leadership representation, right? So like in the black community, there are a lot of black organizations, though you can't represent all black people, someone in a black or even Hispanic community, but there are political groups, activist groups that claim representation of that group and often also speak on behalf of that group. And by and large, there may be some small groups, but amongst all of LGBTQ community, or by a large majority, it is not accepted that there is any particular group that represents them or speaks for them.
Right.
So that's part of the issue is for us, if we're watching someone who claims to be in that community and also a minor attracted persons, and we're seeing this stuff, you could go to Twitter, you could go to Instagram, because some people have told us, oh, cite your sources. Well, you could just go on all the natural things. And a lot of times we're watching the sources live. So you could go and pull their stuff up and see people in that community who are for it. But also you could see people in that community who are against it. Mm-hmm. And what our call was in that episode was join our fight.
Yeah,
you know,
right.
Like what you just said, we're not here to condemn anyone in the LGBTQ community. We're asking you to be in alliance with us. We're asking you to stop bringing your kids to drag shows. Right. We're asking you to stop bringing some of these progressive priests to stop bringing 8 and 9-year-olds in the room and having them meet a drag queen. Right. That's what we're asking you to be in an alliance with. Right. And we're never making any call to violence. We're making a call to action. So to say that our actions or our statements call to violence, It doesn't. I just refuse to fall in that notion. For me to say that I don't like something and I don't agree with something is to say that I'm making a call for action. That is very irresponsible, and that also is disingenuous, and it's also a tactic to try to shut me out. To say, well, if what you say makes you a racist, we do that nowadays a lot, right? We say, hey, that statement you just said, that makes you a racist. Hey, that statement you just said, that makes you anti-Semitic.
Right.
That statement you just said, that makes you homophobic. Well, just because I hold an opinion different from yours, that makes me on the most extreme spectrum of something.
Yeah.
No, I refuse to agree with that. I believe that I can have a standard for my family, my life.
Right.
I can have an opinion on something as long as it's not hateful, as long as it doesn't call to violence. Then I should have a right to say, hey, this is what I think is right for me and my family. This is what I think is right for us and the church in our Christian faith. And so I love comments like this because I love, number one, that people are sharing their opinion. I love that people are disagreeing with us. But it also, like we're doing right now, gives us a chance to respond and say, maybe that gave you clarity. Maybe it didn't.
Right.
But it allows us to share our perspective on some of these topics, you know?
Right. And the thing is that there is a difference between like the typical gay, lesbian, transgender who just wants to live their life, you know, and the actual agenda that's being promoted, where minor attracted person, that came from a university professor. Okay, so these institutions of power, when you have gays against groomers and they're shut down in all social media outlets, that's coming from the institution. So when we speak against it, we're speaking against the powers that be that are clearly showing themselves to be against speaking against grooming, which is like, okay, like I'm supposed to just accept that and be okay with that you're, you know, that you're against a gay community speaking out against sexually grooming children. Like, sorry, I'm going to call that out. I'm going to call that out, and I'm not going to apologize for that. And so, you know, that was the whole spirit of the conversation, is there's clearly an agenda being pushed, and it's that agenda that agenda that we were speaking against. That was the spirit of the conversation, you know.
And the last thought of this, we'll go to another one, is you know, communities as a whole, if you have a voice in that community, you should condemn stuff, and you should also make clarity when stuff is clear. So I think, you know, to say that, you know, maybe our statements may come off unloving sometimes. Well, it just really depends on how you define love and what love is. Because I have individuals in my family who are part of the LGBTQ community. I have individuals that I personally mentor and pastor that are in the LGBTQ community. Some are still practicing. Some have come to Christ and they're trying to fight those feelings because they have a biblical perspective now on their sexuality. But whatever it is I have people in my life who I'm talking to and say, hey, do you think it's unloving if I say this? And some of them be like, no, that's just your truth. That's the way you see it. I disagree with you, but that's the way you see it. I'm not going to tell you not. And if you hurt me and offend me, I will tell you, you know? And so I have people in that community who I talk to on the regular, who will tell me where they draw a line and me offending them or not. Right. And when it comes to pedophilia, them and their community don't feel that I'm triggering when they're very honest, and they say, no, there are people in our community. There are older men who are trying to make it normal in our LGBT community for liking young boys. And we're not okay with that. And so if you speak on that, I'm not going to view that as unloving. I'm going to view that as you calling out people in my community who think that it's okay. There are also straight men who are married who are pedophiles as well. Right, and we will call them out just as well. But it's seemingly right now that it is in that community that is making it a bigger deal. They're the ones who are bringing them to the parades and bringing children,
which should be crimes,
wearing
which
lingerie.
should be legitimate crimes.
That's what we're addressing. We're not acting like anyone else in any other community who acts a certain way. You know, we'll call out a guy who steps out on his wife just the same. You know, we pull videos of guys who are not being men and dating multiple women, and we call that out. That's not unloving. That's our faith in practice. So we really have to at times understand, at least our perspective, what is love and what is not. You know, and you know, we think we've not yet to cross the threshold of what love is, and we sometimes we'll even talk about it post, like, hey, do you think we came off? And we'll reevaluate it. We'll look at it and be like, no, we didn't, you know,
right?
Because we're aware of that. We're always trying to protect that. We never want to come
because
off a certain way,
we're not we're not like homosexuality is not a greater transgression than adultery or fornication or any other sins that biblically or traditionally in the Christian church we have held to, you know. So you know, it's the married man who's sleeping with other women in addition to apart from his wife committing adultery is just as a great a sin as, you know, other sins and
traditional sexuality
or fornication or any of these things. And so but we you know, this is happening a lot. It's happening a lot in our culture right now. It's happening in schools. It's happening in these drag queen story hours. It's happening with the books that they're putting into these schools, and you know, God forbid I don't call that out. If I have the platform, if I have the ability to call that out, I'm going to call that out. And I'm not going to apologize for that. Like, that's not.
And we've talked about that. Like, we've been like, hey, do you think we talk about, you know, this pedophilia thing a lot, or minor attracted persons? Do you think we talk about the LGBT community a lot? And it's like, yeah, we do, because it's in the news.
Everybody's talking about it more
so
now.
we're not doing something more or less. We just, that's the point of our podcast, is to take what's relevant in the world, to be able to filter it through at least our Christian eyes. I can't filter it through anyone else's Christian eyes. Anyone else is welcome to start their own podcast. I'd be happy to listen to it, but we're filtering it through our Christian eyes, what is happening out in the world. And it just so happens every time you turn on social media, every time you turn on the news, there is a conversation around what's happening in that community. And also part of the ambiguity is because there's no direct representation of an organization that speaks on that community. And so it allows a lot of people to get in and infiltrate and take it wherever they want, because they'll, you know, the news can just have one person from that community speak, and somehow they're a spokesperson for the LGBTQ community, but they're not. They're not a spokesperson, because I know people in the LGBTQ community be like, that person don't speak for me. So, you know, and by and large, the same thing for African American or Hispanic, but a lot of African Americans, you know, they will, though they may not agree with all of the organizations that represent their community, they do heavily rely on them to petition and lobby for their wants and needs in a government sense. And you know, we've never fought against that other than what goes in our schools and what goes in the homes, and then what goes on in our families. That's where we as Christians, that's where we get involved. You know, we don't care what happens in your home. We just care when it affects our home. You know, that's what and I hope the same for you. I hope you don't think that I should be calling to something in your home, right?
Right.
If you so choose, if you don't want to. So,
and I think as Christian leaders, like, we should be involved in the culture war. You know, we're always looking at the Martin Luthers, the Ulrich Zwinglys, the Calvins, and, you know, all of these, you know, reformers of our past, and we look up to them. We talk about the trials and their dramas, but they were tackling relevant issues of their day. That's why they have those stories. That's why they're so epic. And I think a lot of leaders, Christian leaders and pastors, they're just on the sidelines right now when it comes to a lot of culture war stuff. And it's like, bro, get in the game. Like, this is our time. Like, this is, God put us on this earth for such a time as this. Like, we got to engage with our culture, you know? That
was one of the toughest decisions when we started this podcast, was because I think majority, not all, but I think every pastor wants to be loved by everybody. Jesus wasn't loved by everybody, but I think our natural instinct is, I want to be loved by everybody. So when we started this podcast, we really wanted to help people to be able to process what's going on in the world around us. But we also knew that should we endeavor to do this, we knew that also a lot of people wouldn't like us. That was a big conversation you and I had, and I would go back and forth to say, am I ready to not be liked by so many people? You know, because now you're putting a line in the sand. I can go in the pulpit on Sunday and I can just stick to some scriptures and not have to help disciple people what's going on in our times. You know, we can kind of fudge around that. But with this, when we want to get in the culture war and we want to help some young men and women out in today's age, we also knew that it would come with people going, I hate you guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and we've had some of that. And you know, we knew that was going to come. And so that was probably the hardest decision I personally had to make when we were doing this was, no, I just want if someone gets mad at me, they get mad at me because they're not a Christian. I don't want another Christian get mad at me, or I just want someone, if they're mad at me, to be like, oh, I don't like that Jesus. And then I could say, oh, they're not rejecting me, they're rejecting Jesus, you know?
Right.
But in this sense is like when you started the podcast, because now we're helping people formulate through our opinion and letting them decide how they want to lead their life. It means a lot of people are going to come in and kind of nitpick. And, but if you get in the culture war, it's like, it's needed. I think more Christians have to, but we also have to build a thicker skin to be able to get in that fight, in that game. And Martin Luther and Ulrich Zwingli and all them cats, they had thick skin. They went through their own demons in their personal life, and you can read their histories to know that.
Yeah, they weren't perfect
but,
by any means.
But they knew their call, and it was to speak to what was going on in the culture, predominantly in the Catholic Church, but also in their secular world as well. There was stuff going on. So, Jermaine, hit us with the next one. We'll go a little more rapid fire if we need to. It was nice to be able to unpack that one.
Yeah, there was one more on this realm.
Okay.
But it's okay because I was just going to commend you guys because being a fan of the podcast, but on this side of the thing, the clip obviously makes it seem like you guys do rapid fire, but you talk about these things at length.
And
you guys don't talk about it lightly. You guys... You know, so I would just say that. And that's what this person, you addressed that. The other person said their end all was, you're not being loving. This person here said, equating the LGBTQIA community with pedophiles is extremely dangerous and irresponsible. Gay people don't want pedophiles targeting children either. We can speak truth without coming from a fear-based place. And so if you wanted to just speak to or nuance the fear part at all. If not, we can just...
Yeah, I mean, you know... We never come from a fear perspective of in that clip of what we're doing, and I think what maybe this person is nuancing is when often we're talking, we do talk with a sense of urgency. We cannot let this get to our kids. We cannot let this affect our kids. This is wrong. This is, you know, in terms of the minor attracted person and the pedophilia. To me, that isn't fear mongering. That is creating urgency for people to say, hey, before we see the degradation of society go deeper and deeper, we all need to get to a place of urgency where we start acting. You got to get into your school boards. You need to get into your kids' iPads. You need to start looking at this stuff.
Proactive,
not to be
not
scared
reactive.
of anything, but it's like I remember I talked to a mother who for an entire semester, her daughter's high school, because her daughter dressed a little bit more like a tomboy, her daughter's high school changed her daughter's name to a boy's name for an entire semester because the teacher convinced her daughter to explore what it would be to be a boy and what it would be to have a boy's name for the school year. And the parents were never told. They never informed the parents.
Wow.
So the teacher informed all of her classmates or all of the other teachers in her class, this is the name that the girl, we now call her boy, and all these things like that. And the parents were never told. The mother found out one day because her daughter bring home homework, and her daughter had a boy's name on her homework, and she said, oh, they gave you the wrong homework. And her daughter flushingly with red face said, no, that is my name right now. And it had been going on for months. And the parents didn't know, and the parents are talking to me like, what happened? And I'm like, we have to have more urgency. We cannot get shocked with things like this. I don't know their family dynamic, but I'm like, you got to get involved in your kid's life. You need to, you know, like,
well, for sure.
So that's what we're using. We're not using fear monger. It was like this urgency because I talked to enough parents, and then come to find out that girl, she was like actually now upset at the school for encouraging her to do that because she's like, wait, no, I'm not that sexuality. Why was my teacher, who I really respect, encouraging me to go in this direction? Because they do. Oftentimes, teachers spend more times with your child than you do if you work a full-time job and all these things like that. And so that's when we're like, not fear-mongering, but like, hey, this is urgent. Go talk to your kids. Go check out their iPads. Go look at their phones. Go sit down and love them. Be involved in their life. Like, be urgent in that sense, you know? So that's what I think we're talking about when it comes off as urgent. We're not trying to scare anyone because we grew up in it. We talked about that before. The end times people is like scaring you into stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean,
like,
it's not a fear. Like I don't know. It's just a reality of our times. Even my daughter, she goes to a Christian school, and she has a friend who says that she's bisexual. An 11-year-old is thinking about her sexuality in a Christian school. And I was able to walk my daughter through, okay, how do you interact with her? How do you love her? How do you be a friend to her? And so on. And so, hello, like, this is just the world we live in, and it's not fear. It's just equipping ourselves, having the conversations, opening up our eyes, and hopefully getting active in your school boards, getting active in your teacher, asking your teacher questions, knowing what the books are in the library, knowing what. That's all we're saying. Just be attentive,
Yeah, and there are minor attracted persons lobby groups that are in Congress who are trying to lobby to decriminalize pedophilia, and many of them in that community put their genders and everything. They say non-binary, he, she, and so that is a reflection of someone who identifies in the LGBTQ community. So you can't just wide a thing and say, oh no, all LGBTQ community reject that. It's not true.
Right.
There are some within that community, because it's not an organization. It's a cluster of people that identify some. There are people in that community who are trying to decriminalize.
Well, it's clear.
This.
The agenda is clear. And that's the
even
thing.
all
It's
the way
like,
up into institutions. So,
and let me go back to my daughter, because I just think it's such a great lesson, and it's for you to hear our hearts where we're coming from. It's like when my daughter, when I found that out, like I didn't respond to my daughter saying, oh, you need to cut her off. You need to stop being a friend to her. You need to, it was none of that. And that's what we don't encourage any Christian who hears this podcast to do that with any person in their life, family or friend, or who has this sort of a inclination. Like, that's not what we're encouraging, and so, but yeah.
That's good.
Cool. We're going to switch gears a little bit. This is our last Instagram comment, and then we'll go to another platform.
Okay.
This one you responded to, and you told them that you're going to DM them. So just to give people an insight, or if you want to nuance it, because it looked like you were busy. So basically, you said, this person said, pardon the ignorant question. And this is, sorry, to give context, this is the Jeff Osborne clip when he's referring to Black Israelites and Kanye on the Jewish community, saying, I'm jealous of them. And that's a cool sentiment to have, that whole context. So this person says, pardon the ignorant question. Jewish people don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, correct? If they are still waiting on the Messiah, will that be the Antichrist? Second question, why is there a commandeering brotherhood between Christians and Jewish people if they would accept the Antichrist? It just crossed my mind listening to the podcast today. And then you let them know, hey, I'm in the middle of something right now. I'll DM you later. And so if you wanted to nuance that, so that, because people who are watching that interaction, like, oh, I wonder what he said. Type of deal.
Yeah. So, I mean, as much as we can, I try to interact. If someone just, publicly calls me out in a comment, if I have a chance, I'll just say something if I can, or the team will on Beyond the Letter. But if I also feel like, hey, I feel like you are asking a legitimate question. Maybe you disagree with an outlook we have, but it seems like you're willing to have dialogue. I'm happy to DM. Our Halloween episode, I had a lot of Christians DMing me with thoughts and perspective, which led to me doing an Instagram tirade in my stories, which many people were privy of, where I gave perspectives of Halloween and stuff like that. And so, I'm happy to engage in DMs, and from those that are willing to have a respectable discourse. There was even one person who disagreed with our Halloween episode, and I Zoomed them. I did a Zoom with them. I did a 30-minute Zoom with a young woman, and we left the conversation agreeing to disagreeing. But one thing that she noted was, number one, she noted, you didn't have to do this, and you did. I appreciate it. Number two, she said, I didn't realize there is so much back thought in what you guys say. I thought you guys just may talk about it, but I didn't realize if you say a statement, you have a lot of thought that's coming behind it.
Yeah.
It's just we're not always there to give those thoughts and those proofs because we don't want to turn an hour and a half or a 2-hour episode into a 5-hour episode because nobody will listen to it.
By giving sources.
So, yeah,
and,
going sources.
and like, you know.
Doing the whole nine. So yeah,
Yeah.
like, you know, in his case, this individual who commented that I still actually, because it's relatively fresh, I still have to do DM, but he did message me and say, hey, don't forget we're supposed to talk. And I said, hey, I'm gonna give you my thoughts on it. But in short, to his response, because then he and I are gonna go further in the DMs, is part of it is no, not all Jewish. I know a lot of Jewish people. You know, I've been to Israel, and so a lot of my Jewish friends I know, they say if Jesus returns, I'm willing to call him Messiah, but he has to come in the terms that I understand in the Old Testament. He has to come as a king and an authority. He has to bring peace on the earth. And what we would know according to Revelations is Jesus's future. Mm-hmm. Now we understand the tribulation period, which they need to receive him. Depending on what your eschatology is, you need to receive him in that time period.
The church age.
Yeah, but regardless, majority of Jewish guys I know, they don't reject Jesus as Messiah indefinitely. They reject him in the notion of what we know, which is we needed a lamb to be slaughtered first in order for our sins to be rectified. And that's why we as Christians, we know that Jesus is the Messiah. They will say, no, that's not the gig we thought of, because they're reading the Old Testament in a different lens. And so we do believe that you need Christ in order for your sins to be rectified. That is something that's deep intrinsic within our faith and our biblical teaching. But also it doesn't give that whoever that future Messiah is would be the Antichrist. Now there will be someone who will bring peace upon the earth prior to Jesus fulfilling it. And that's when we know that all hands, all out war is going to be directed towards Israel and the land of Israel. And that's how we know that that's the Antichrist, and we know the market of the beast and all those things like that. But for Jewish people, they don't go far enough into our book of Revelations that they explore any of our stuff that we believe in the book of Revelations. So they just put it plainly and say, if Jesus comes back and he comes back to put peace on earth and he comes back in all authority and all glory, blah, 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 then we will say that he is the Messiah, which we know he will do with some other caveats in that as well. And then it just depends on what type of Christian you are. The reason why Christians and Jews are so close is because we're cousins in religion. So they have the Old Testament, we have the Old Testament, but we have the New Testament. They have the Midrash and the Talmud and other things like that they add to the Torah as well. And so they have extra biblical things. We don't have what we would say is extra biblical. We have the New Testament, which we believe is inspired by the Holy Spirit, inspired by God. And so, most Christians, by and large, support Israel and pray for Israel because many believe that it's in Revelations that all hands are going to be directed towards Israel. And so many believe, as Christians, we need to have peace and allegiance with Jews.
Well, many Christians in our tradition believe that that now's the time, and for the Jewish people are rejecting Christ as their Messiah and awaiting what they picture the Old Testament Messiah to look like Adam said, and then so now you have this interim in which God is saving the Gentiles or bringing the Gentiles into His kingdom, along with a remnant of ethnic Jews, and those ethnic Jews, there'll be a great revival at the end of the church age in which the ethnic Jews come to Christ. And so that's why a lot of Christians in America, evangelical Christians, dispensational, premillennial Christians, work so well with Israel and with Jews, is because they have this hope that the Jewish people are going to be saved, and that they're ultimately going to come to Christ as a whole. Now, individually, we're all, there's sheep, there's goats, and so on. But we're mainly speaking as a whole, as a group. So that's
as we're talking by, the YouTube studio, there's two guys that are arguing right now on YouTube about actually what we're talking about right now,
Really?
which is so funny. Yeah.
Did you want to try to catch it after?
No, I mean we can, but it just it literally just notified me. There's two guys. One guy's saying Abraham never existed. One guy saying Abraham was black. They're going at it.
the Hebrew Israelite
it
argument.
seems like it. It
Well,
seems like it.
well, that's
but,
funny. We're gonna
it's
get
funny.
into our YouTube Black Israelite conversation next.
Okay.
So that's kind of cool.
It's literally funny. It's like my phone's going boom boom. These two guys just.
That's hilarious. Okay, so we had over like 250 comments on when we had Jeff Osborne on, and we did get into the Black Israelite conversation.
Yeah.
And a young man's want to find his identity and all that.
That video on YouTube alone has done like what 6,000 views or something like that.
It's up there.
That's
so,
excluding Spotify and Apple. And,
right,
yeah.
and so it was really cool. We have a lot of positive, a lot of negative, and a lot in between. So I wanted to highlight this person who said, if you guys want an opinion of someone who lives this and knows this, please feel free to reach out. You are all asking great questions, but there is no one there who can answer these questions from a pro position. I'm a believer in Messiah and believer in keeping of the covenant of Abraham. The brother said his bloodline goes to Ghana, referring to Jeff Osborne. Research LGBO. Bruh is highly likely to be Hebrew by blood. Here's the thing, though. Even if your blood isn't Hebrew, the question is, are you desiring to be in covenant with the Most High, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? If so, Messiah says you are his brother, and what comes with that is guarding the commands of the Creator.
We would love to have a legit practicing Black Hebrew Israelite on the table and just talk stuff out. We would love that. We just don't know of any that are like that ingrained. But
or that may have a civil discussion.
Yeah, right, and really really just learn specifics of what they actually believe,
and us be able to ask harder questions because what we're doing is we're plain and simple. We're Protestant evangelical Christians. So everything we look at, everything we read, everything we do, we're very proud of that. We're proud of being Protestant evangelical Christians. We're proud of being seminary educated, and so we're proud that on the front end we do our homework. We're not meeting these thoughts beforehand, or for the first time, right? So if we talk about Islam, I've said before in other areas, but I've read the full Quran on my own. I was an apologetic major, so I've read the Quran on my own. I've read the Book of Mormon on my own, and so all we're trying to do on the podcast is to spike people's interest. To you go and explore these things and build up your faith. Apologetics means a defense of the faith. So you build up your Christian faith. We're Protestant evangelicals, so we're strong in our faith. So we can talk about anyone else's faith without getting up in arms.
Right.
I can talk about a Muslim without getting angry or feel insecure that they're saying something that I can't give an answer to. I'm not that does not, and I'm not even saying I have all the answers to everything. But what I'm saying is I'm strong in my faith to where when me and Caleb started this podcast early on, we said, because we're only 8 weeks in, early on we said, hey, we're committed to this for a few years at minimum. And second of all, is the future we would like to do is to be able to have conversations of people that do not agree with us, that maybe come from different denominations, different backgrounds, or even different religions, to where you and I, in a friendly way, not only could we let them share what from the horse's mouth, we'd love to have someone in the LGBT community on the podcast. We would love, should we know that they're reputable, and we also don't want anyone to think that we're here to bully anyone. Mm-hmm. So we want to make sure that person has enough maturity and intellect themselves that it doesn't sound like by me and Caleb asking questions that we're bullying them or anything like that. And so if we ever met someone and I had a 5-minute or 10-minute cup of coffee with them and they were different religion or faith, we want to be able to say, hey, you should come on our podcast. You should come share, and even let us ask some questions to where maybe in our faith background is why we disagree or where we may have issues with. So we're not necessarily wanting to open air a debate, but what we would like to do is to be able to explore the thoughts that don't agree with us and even let us share a little bit more why we disagree with it.
Yeah,
with them
I
letting
find
to be able to talk about.
Yeah,
you know,
like I find their movement interesting and fascinating, and would love to learn more from somebody who's an insider. Now, our beliefs, I believe, like from my sideline looking observing observing them in the movement, I kind of see it as more based upon tracking your genealogy, tracking your ethnicity. And that's one of the tenets, it seems like to me, tracking your genealogy. And in the New Testament, it's made clear that don't argue about genealogies because they're fruitless under the New Covenant. I'm a New Covenant Christ follower, and so I don't get bogged down with genealogy. That means nothing to my faith, but I'd be interested to talk about why that's important to you. And but so there's that, and there's also, I agree with him, the most important thing is to serve the commandments of God. But the question is, what does that mean? Yeah. So for me as a Christian, it means following the commandments of my Lord Jesus Christ, who's the representation of God, God's spokesman, God on earth, the God-man, Jesus Christ. And so it's whatever he said, that's what I follow. Yeah. So to me, that's how I define that. Now, how they define that may be different than that. That would be an interesting conversation. How do you define the commandments of God? Are you referring to the Old Testament law? Are you referring to, the laws of Moses? Yeah. What are you referring to? So yeah, I would love to hear more what specifically they believe about their religion, their faith. Yeah. But also, like you said, I'm confident enough in the Christian, my Christian beliefs, my Christian worldview, that, at the end of the day, it's like genealogy, that's interesting, that's fascinating, is important to you. To me as a Christian, that's not important. To me, that's not a part of the gospel. Tracking your genealogy. But
it's good. Yeah. And I know guys that also, I know guys that they're not fully into the Hebrew Israelites, or some of them call it the United Church. It's just a bunch of different names for it. But I know guys who identify, and they'll tell me, Adam, you have to call Jesus by his name. It's Yeshua. And, they become very Old Testament related. And so I'll tell them, sometimes they'll quote a passage in the Bible, and I'll say, no, quote it to me in Hebrew. And they don't know Hebrew, they just know Jesus' name is Yeshua. They know it's Yahweh. It's like, no, I want you, if you're embracing it so much, I want you to quote it in Hebrew for me. It's like, and I took Hebrew in college. I'll be able to know enough whether you're doing it right or not. And I don't know it. And so you be able to have, if you have someone live, you'll be able to have that banter back and forth more, where you would see me and Caleb maybe give more of an apologetic approach, where normally if it's just me and Caleb representing that side, we're just trying to explore their idea, their thought. We're trying to understand why they're where they're at, whether we're talking about a Muslim or a Jehovah's Witness or Hebrew Israelite. We're just trying to see, why are they fascinated by that? What is they appealed to it? Because we don't have an appeal to it, but we can respect why there are either millions or tens of thousands of people that are identifying in this. But if we have a live person, you would probably hear more of our questioning and maybe our skepticism, if the conversation is friendly enough that we'd be able to have that, Yeah,
and just like one of the things is like, well, Jesus is black. Jesus isn't white, blonde hair, blue eyes, right? Yeah. And I'm like, if you want your Jesus to be black, let him be black.
I'm cool with that.
If that makes you happy, if that makes you happy, you got to see Jesus is black in order to obey Jesus.
Yeah, go for it.
I'd never believe Jesus is white. I'm raised in the American evangelical, evangelical.
We grew up in the black church.
We grew up basically black church, but evangelical church, and I've never thought of Jesus as white, blonde hair, blue eyes. If you want your Jesus,
or like Qui-Gon Jinn.
Personally, I think when he was on Earth, it was darker skin color. Yeah. I think he was a Middle Eastern man.
Than anything.
Probably closer to a black man than a white, blonde hair, blue eye. Yes,
for sure.
So I'll give you that.
So what do you want to talk about next?
Yeah, what next?
Yeah. I'll give you everything until we get into theology. That's like when I was in school and I was studying theology and apologetics. One day we had to debate how many angels can dance on the head of a needle, right?
Yeah, right.
Because at the end of the day, like the point is, if you debate it, we had to debate and defend how many angels we believe danced on the head of the needle. And the point of the exercise was, it doesn't matter how many angels dance on the head of the needle, but we had to at least formulate the thought around it and the structure and maybe how many, well, metaphysical, do they, it's like, but the point of our professor was to show us that if it's not in the scripture and it's not emphatically in the Bible where you can see it, then at the end of the day, you're arguing over, descriptives instead of prescriptives and things like that. So
yeah,
I think it's understanding that.
And apparently too, my mind just shut down.
Yeah,
Never mind.
it's a
Moving
beautiful
on.
thought.
Moving on.
It's a beautiful thought. Corey leaned in too. Corey was like, "Wasn't that
I had a world-changing
God bless you.
thought.
We could rapid fire some YouTube
Okay.
stuff, and then so this one is the YouTube short "Where Does Life Begin" from season 1, episode 1.
Wow.
And so these people, they're united. There's
Oh,
two
wait,
of-
let me go. Cut it out. I just remembered. I want to bring this up, seriously, because this is fascinating to me, going
Okay,
back
go
to
ahead.
Black Hebrew Israelite. Because what was fascinating, and we kind of joke about this, but it really is fascinating. I never knew this, is that they believe that Hispanics are a part of their movement of the
right.
Black Hebrew Israel. So just want everybody to know, like we are half Hispanic. So because I think that
Yeah.
so so
there's a natural are you saying there's a natural interest to be like, hey,
well, because what I see from them is the way they evangelize is they reach out specifically to people that qualify ethnically within that genealogy,
brown,
right?
yeah.
And so even now you have a lot of Hispanics who are now coming out and following this movement. So I just want you to because they may see me as like a lost sheep, right? Since I'm Hispanic.
Yeah, they
So
do.
I'm a part of
Yeah.
the 12 tribes to them. I think
yeah.
it's Issachar.
You are.
Is the
Yeah.
Hispanics. So they would see me as like a lost sheep, right? I mean that I need to be brought into the fold, right? So I'm just saying, for those Black Hebrew Israelites, like you're not talking to two white guys. We are a part of the genealogy from your understanding.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to be fair, because I got an ad on YouTube trying to recruit me because I'm Hispanic. It was a whole
Yeah,
recruitment
yeah,
thing
it's trying to
from
come
Black
out.
Hebrew Israel. Say if you're Black, or if you're brown, if you're Hispanic, you need to come to and be join your true calling.
and you
in
went like
life.
this, like a moth to a flame.
So anyways,
you and
I
your
mean-
soft, supple mind.
Okay. Okay. So this one is "Where Does Life Begin?" It was that clip about that. So this is
Was this my clip? I was talking.
yeah. This
in
is where
one?
you're saying
Okay.
that we just have to agree on where does life begin.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
And so because that's a lot of people see us as Christians that believe abortion is murder.
Yeah.
As that's not murder. So these people.
But even more I'm here.
Hey, what's up, gang?
Even more specific, just because I've been, I sift through this stuff too on my free time in the YouTube. But this was your illustration about
The space thing,
Yeah, the
right?
space thing. If on Mars, if
Yeah.
they said, where
What
we found
qualifies
life,
that life
yeah,
in
we
Mars?
found life. Yeah, that's what
Okay.
this is. Go ahead.
So these people, they believe they molded you, and I wanted you to be able to speak up. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
They said, except that's not life. The two cells would be the potential for life to be created someday in the very far future. The two cells are not growing and living entities on their own. And then another person said, show me a viable human being that has only two cells, and you win the argument. And then somebody said, right. He made a decent point, as in it's life, just not a human one. Looking for life on Mars isn't looking for human-like creatures, and that definition of it applies to plants as well. Doubt anyone thinks tree being cut down was murdered or has the same value as a person losing their life. So why would the two cells then?
Yeah, I mean, number one, he did add a clarifying factor, which is the aspect of life would be the potential for life, which to me he actually aids in my argument is it has to have the potential for life. So the potential to grow, the potential to become something, and so to me, he adds in my argument, which is him saying, no, you didn't say that those 2 cells would be life. It actually would constitute as the potential for life, which I would say, huzzah, like you're right, like you are right. The argument is the potential for life. So he did make a good qualifying point, which is true. They're looking for the potential of life, not necessarily would they 100% call that life potentially. But in the same qualifying factor as well is you have to understand as well that what we're responding here to is the abortion argument, and is both the politicians and certain physicians who are trying to say that a baby in the fetal cell, whether it be 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, is not a constitution of life. And my argument would be whether you qualify it as their life or not, we can agree that it does have the potential for life. Mm-hmm. And so we have to understand that if it has the potential for life, it is not of our job to be able to get involved, to be able to cease that process or not, whether no matter what stage you think it is in the same sense that there are laws that exist, that there are certain ecosystems in the world where you cannot bring in any foreign entity because it could potentially harm the preservation. So if you go to New Zealand, you actually have to come in with either a fresh pair of boots, or you have to decontaminate your boots because they won't even let a bacteria foreign to New Zealand enter to potentially risk the life of both the animals but also the plants. So they're right. There are degrees in which you treat the life of something differently. You do treat the life of a plant different than you treat the life of an animal or the life of a child. But we also have animal preservation teams. So if we really believed in Darwinianism and it's the survival of the fittest, then half of the money that Animal Planet donates to animal conservation, which is to allow them to breed outside of those that are killing animals and stuff like that. But they work to make sure that endangered species lives. They make sure that at-risk species get protection zones where no other animals are allowed to endanger them. And so all you're doing is you're being God. If you really are Darwinian in that sense, then you would actually say that it's not our job to be involved what happens to some of these wolves right now that are endangered in North America, And so, in that sense, that's where I would kind of add those quality that you could just talk further and further. But yes, at the end of the day, someone who's a scientific professional may say, no, this is what I say is life. But I think the remnant of the point that I made is abundantly clear. We are hypocrites. Time Magazine would identify Mars as life with a lot more room to breathe than we would to say that that a child has life. Because that's the only way these politicians get away with them being able to create the abortion standards at second term or third term, because they're trying to define when life starts and when it ends. If they said, oh no, that child is living, but we still think we could kill it, they know right away majority of people would not be okay with that. So instead, all they're trying to do is argue on when the life begins. So that's all my argument has been trying to point out is, let's just agree at when life begins. And then from there, you could just tell me that you think you have the right to murder that child in the second or third trimester. But you do need to admit at some point where that life begins. That I mean, that's just foundational. And they don't do that. You go ask a politician, well, when does life begin? And they'll say, well, I leave it up to the professionals. That's the point I was making, is like, no, why can't you answer it? If science has progressed so much, why can't we answer the question?
Right. Right.
Why are we still a little bit of fuzzy on it?
Right.
Tell me 5 months. Give me an answer.
Right.
That's the kind of the issue I had. But I'll tell that guy, hey, you might be right.
Well said.
Tell the guy, hey, you may be right. I may be wrong.
Yeah, I don't got nothing.
I'm not a scientist.
Yeah, we'll be wrapping up. This is our last. We're going to move to TikTok, and this is kind of the more lighthearted realm because a lot of people seem to agree with us on TikTok. I don't know what's the rhyme or reason behind that.
Bro.
Yeah.
Well, that's what TikTok wants you to do. TikTok wants to put you in the algorithm that people will like your stuff the most. But whatever. Go ahead.
No,
Yeah.
this is specifically comments on the Thor and the emasculation of men in Hollywood. And
Yeah.
so because it's so positive, and people's only gripe or that you potentially are representing the plot of Thor. So lightheartedly, was there anything
Okay.
that you wanted to answer to in the people that, if you did come across any disagreement when you were sifting through the comments? Because there's a lot of positive, and the only negative is like, were we watching the same movie? And so,
yeah, I mean, I feel like we were watching the same movie. Well, I did see one criticism of a guy say that Thor was stupid from the beginning, since the first movie. Now, while I understand what their perspective is, the way that I had viewed it was, no, from the beginning, Thor was much more innocent, because he came from another planet, and he was in America, or it was in America, but he was on Earth, and he didn't know the Earth customs. He didn't know the Earth things. And so there is a playful ignorance towards Jane Foster and towards that relationship. But as the movies progress, and even in that movie, even in other movies where he's seen back originally around his dad, there were very serious moments of his nobility, of his wrestle to see if he can fill into his father's shoes, and there was a desire for him to be the best king as possible, and then even when he fought his sister or whatever, right? So there was always a thread of nobility. There was always a thread of the throne that he was going to step into, and I don't even care that he didn't take the throne, and the other warrior, the girl, took it. Like, that wasn't even my thing. It's by these last couple ones. Like,
well, he was clearly, it changed on Ragnarok. He was clearly dispassionate in the first three.
Yeah.
More along the more along the character of like an Arnold Schwarzenegger 1980s movie type machismo man, dispassionate.
He had a beard,
no
and he-
emotions. And then that shifted in Ragnarok. He became more emotional, and then in game he became much crying over his wanting to see his mom and stuff.
Yeah.
And then this last one, it was like next level as far as
his stupidity, his dumbness,
making him
his,
just a bimbo, a blonde woman bimbo, the stereotypical.
And what we mean by that, because I saw another
Barbie.
negative comment one time, they're thinking we're saying blondes are bimbos. What we're saying is, no,
That's stereotype.
Yeah, Hollywood traditionally would portray women in the 90s who were blonde as dumb and invaluable, and just they were just good to look at.
Right.
And it's like that's what Thor
Just
was in this
goofy
last
and
one. And so the first one was a fish out of water storytelling, and then the last one was what? How would you word it? It was a satire, satire of stupidity.
and
While Jane Foster,
his first involvement, you're bringing in Thor. Like, come on, let me
film. That's why.
Well, he's a
It's
script
film.
writer.
Yeah,
He's a
yeah,
I
yeah.
know,
he's a
but
movie-
Thor,
he's a
we
film
should
guy.
save
Get over
that
here,
for
get
like
over here, Corey.
we need to save him, like
He's
save
a film guy.
like a real substantial
yeah. If you
If you
question,
guys like
not
the
a
movie
Thor
talk,
question.
though, Corey is a real deal filmmaker. So we've always joked that we need to do just a pure movie episode of critiques and film, and we could put a little face spin on it too. But if you guys want that, let us know in the comments.
Okay, and there's one last one. On the last one, the other comments were just anti-Taika Waititi, and all Chris Hemsworth can be is a white bimbo or whatever. So people were hating on Chris Hemsworth. But anyways, this
I
last
like Chris. I think he's a good guy. I don't know him personally. But
this last one, and we'll close, is still TikTok, and this is the Lana clip. About 8.4 million children are involved in prostitution, the degradation of a society, and when they target children, the future of that. That was that's the clip, that's the context. And it actually, there was one comment that had over 30 people reply to that comment.
Oh, wow.
And so I wanted to get your guys' take on this.
Okay.
It could be a hot take, could not be, but they want to know, which political party do you think is pushing this agenda the most? And so it's pretty interesting because people are saying it's Dems. No, it's both. It's a game. There's gatekeepers. That whole conversation. And so I wanted to hear your guys' take on that. Just,
What was the topic again?
Which political party do you think is pushing that agenda the most?
What
Which
agenda?
is
It was the child trafficking
child
stuff.
trafficking and
the Lana stuff she was talking about.
Oh well, I think okay. So I think definitely the Republican Party or right-wing conservatives, they're the ones that are the most passionate about bringing this to the public's attention. Definitely, because I'm in those. I listen to those guys. I'm in those circles. I think it's something that we need to be aware of. I think it's something that needs to be shouted on the rooftops. I think it's something that needs to be. The media needs to be talking about it. Instead, we're talking about dumb stuff. Distractions and all this nonsense. But it seems to me. It is the Republicans, conservatives, right-wing side that's exposing sex trafficking, and then you also get into the more conspiratorial following that's talking about Epstein and Pizzagate and all of this stuff, which has come out to be valid and true. So it's not a conspiracy anymore, and so it's really happening. We got a guest that, from her own personal testimony, witness, verified that it's happening. And you got the actor from Passion of the Christ. He's recently done a movie about it. And he's a, man of faith, religious. And so it seems to me, it's funny because nothing against Democrats or the left wing or anything in regards to this. I'm not saying they support it. I'm just saying it's usually crickets, from their side. From my experience, it's just been from the right.
I think my viewpoint differs a little bit in the sense that I think that the higher you go up in the powers that be in America right now, the dirtier the glove gets on both sides.
Oh, I agree with you. So, I think Republicans are just as dirty as Democrats. Don't get me wrong.
Right.
I'm talking about those who are exposing it are from the conservative side. But the right is just as dirty.
I would say they're all
elites. They're all.
I would say they're all on like a lower level Republican, lower level conservative. Is but the higher you go up, on both sides, even when it comes to this insider trading stuff with stocks and their lobbies and what they're trying to do. I mean, it just, it's a pay to play thing. There is a lot of there's a lot of satanic practices. There's a lot of money
and power.
There is this power that corrupts good character. And so, that guy's question
she was saying
is,
Orange County is like the hub, right?
Yeah.
In this area, and Orange County, I think,
Republican.
is Republican.
It's a red
and
county.
you have it. Yeah. Texas is a big hub, and what is Texas?
Yeah,
Texas is red.
Yeah.
So I don't want to. I don't want to give
I
off the impression that Republicans are the holy and Democrats are evil.
Right.
It's like, no, they're all corrupt.
I got where you were headed, which is it just seems like more of the lower end guys, that do political talk. They're obviously more of a conservative nature who are trying to shed light to it. But as a whole, it's just it's very messy. It's very unfortunate. It's very hard to know what a politician's character is like, what their personal life is like, and it's hard with the powers that be right now, with so many levels of and areas of corruption. That's why we've talked about before. We really believe in being involved in a local front. We really believe in being involved in what's going on in your cities and in your county and in your community, because that you can catch, that you can guide, that you can speak into. The more of the national things, it becomes more and more muddier. It becomes more and more tough, and so it's good to maintain your conviction and your values, whatever those things may be. And so for me, that guy's question, who party do you think? I mean, my answer would be, I think all of them at the top. I think they're all eating,
They're all involved to some degree, yeah.
I think everyone's hand is in everything, because they have the power to form committees and do what they need to do.
That was the testimony of Annika Lucas, which if you search her on YouTube, she has millions of views, but she basically said that because she was asked, who are the elites? Like, what side, what political party persuasion are these that do this stuff? And she's like, both.
Yeah.
they're
side of power.
If
side of power.
they're elites,
Yeah.
they have their hand in this, you
Yeah.
know, and because it's such a moneymaker, it's a part of the way this corrupt world turns, you
Yeah.
know, and slavery, sex trafficking, you know, abusing children. It unfortunately it's
Yeah.
the way the world turns in this regard.
Yeah.
You know.
If you guys enjoyed us, send us a message. Let us know if you guys like this short little form that we could do every once in a while and engage. It'd be fun. And don't forget, in the future, we're gonna have on guests, ones that we agree with, disagree with. The future is bright for this podcast. You got anything else, Jermaine or Gabe? That was it.
Appreciate to get in your guys' minds beyond the letter. No, I'm just kidding.
beyond the letter. Right. Beyond the letter plus, like Disney Plus or whatever. You know. Thanks everyone for joining us for this. Hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah. Thanks.